Welcome back, friends. So it has been announced that Summer House Martha's Vineyard has been put on pause, and I have very mixed feelings about the pause, but I have very strong feelings about some of the reactions that I've seen from certain viewers across social media. The long and short of it is we have to stop throwing out the racism and the colorism flag because I feel like we do it so often that they are starting to lose their weight. The other side of that coin is you have to watch a show in order for the show to be renewed. You can't just want a show to get renewal after renewal just for representation purposes because it is a business at the end of the day. I want to talk about that, and then I also want to get into a little bit about the reunion and who I think should stay and who I think should go should they decide to do a complete cast overhaul when they eventually bring us back for a season 3. Let's just get into it. Okay, so in somber news, Summer House Martha's Vineyard has been put on pause after 2 seasons, and I have very mixed emotions about that. While I was entertained by season 2, I do feel like there was something missing. I don't know if it was just the heaviness of each episode, which a lot of people on social media pointed out. I agree with that critique, but what I don't agree with was that when it was announced that the show was going on pause, all of a sudden, the network was racist. All of season 2 across social media and other places on the internet, I saw people pretty much bashing season 2. They were calling it boring. They were saying everybody needed to be fired. There was so much criticism. And then all of a sudden, when it goes on pause, that's like World War III. There's simple math when it comes to television and anything else that is marketed to a predominantly Black audience. Black people have to actually watch the show. If we already make up a smaller pool of people just by being a minority in the country, then you take away the amount of Black people who don't watch reality television. Then you take away the amount of Black people who don't want to watch this specific type of reality television. We are left with an even smaller pool. And so it was to my surprise that when I would see people throughout the season ask if they should get into Summer House Martha's Vineyard, other people will be blatantly discouraging them from starting the show. It would be amazing if it was a crossover hit and it drew the interest of different races. That is the ideal situation. But for seasons 1 and 2, I think they needed to get their footing with their target demo, which should have been Black people. And so to see people actively discouraging others who wanted to get in the show, and then to see some of those same people outraged that the show was put on pause, it was really baffling to me. The silver lining to this is that they just put it on pause and they didn't outright cancel the show. But I just feel like it's really disingenuous when people weren't watching the show a lot to begin with, actively discouraging other people from watching the show. And then when it's put on pause, the network becomes racist. Now, we know that there are instances of racism that are really happening and that are still happening, especially with the entertainment and media, but I don't know the ins and outs of what constituted this pause. And so I'm not comfortable just throwing the racism flag on it because there were some other factors that seemed like they could have come into play. Again, the negative reactions through social media and also the viewership. And so when you're actively discouraging people from watching the show, and the ratings aren't super high to begin with, we arrive here with the show on pause. If I had any advice to offer the network or the production company for the eventual season 3, is I do want to see the show come back, and I want them to record when Martha's Vineyard is in its peak season. From the looks of it, it seems like they record in the off season, so there aren't a whole lot of things for the cast to do. This season, they did more events where they invited other people outside of the housemates to their events, and those seemed to be more fun, but there's so many things that happen on Martha's Vineyard in the summertime. I mean, Barack and Michelle Obama have a home there. There's the Martha's Vineyard Film Festival. There's so many events that we could see the cast go to that I feel would make for a much more interesting season. The other advice that I would ask is the fact that they're only there for about 15 days, which seems really short. I don't remember how long the OG Summer House housemates are in their house, but it seems like it's a longer time than just 2 weeks. So I would love to see them in the Martha's Vineyard house for longer than just the 14 or 15 days that they have been there. Should they decide to do a complete cast overhaul, there are three people that I feel like the show could do without. One of those people that I feel really strongly about is Shanice. I am not a fan of Shanice. I know Shanice is the lighthearted, fun party girl, but I think that they could replace her with a million other women just like that. Shanice, to me, has shown too many instances where she's just a shady friend. In season 1, when Bria and Mariah were getting into it and somebody told her to go and defend her friend Bria, she was like, I'm not getting into that, or that's not my beef or something. She just was acting like she couldn't even go in and try to diffuse the situation. And then she just seems like a person who kind of lacks a little bit of a moral compass. I know that's a strong accusation, but she seems like one of those people, and I might be doing too much with this example. She seems like the kind of girl that would screw your man and then just be like, oh my God, it was so funny. Like, we were just drunk, right? She's a very flippant person, and people like that are hard for me to relate to or even find really entertaining. The other person is Bria. Now, I'm on the fence about Bria because in some respects, I do think Bria can be entertaining. She can be fun, but she's also annoying to the point where it's not even fun to watch. She goes from 0 to 100 at the drop of a dime, and it oftentimes seems like she's overdoing it, and she just really wasn't fun for me to watch this season. I do like the fact that she checked her boyfriend when he came down with that crazy costume during Nick's event. I love why she checked him. She mentioned it at the reunion, like Nick was doing this special event to, one, honor his friend, but to also educate people on the Black sororities and fraternities. And for Bria's boyfriend Simon to try to make that moment about him, it wasn't the right time. So I am glad that she checked him about that. But for me, I don't know. You never know what you're going to get with Bria. And while that can make for interesting reality television, for me, it just wasn't doing the job. Summer is a third person that I'm really on the fence about, leaning more towards she can go, because Summer has shown on multiple occasions that she can be a violent drunk. She's put her hands on, I think, 2 people at least in the house when she's been drunk. She's also one of those people that you tell something to in confidence, and then as soon as they get angry at you, they throw it back in your face. And I don't rock with that. And so for me, Shanice can definitely go. Bria and Summer, I'm on the fence about. Everybody else stays for me. Jasmine is the nucleus of the show, and so she has a really important role. I also love that we've seen Jasmine in 2 very distinct phases of that like early to mid 30s life. Season 1, she was a newlywed. Season 2, she's having her first baby and dealing with the deployment of her husband. So she's essentially going through her pregnancy by herself. Those are very relatable phases in the lives of early 30 to mid 30 something. Jordan was so sour at the beginning of the season. I almost put her on my list of people that I feel could go, but I started to have a lot of empathy for Jordan because Jordan has been a woman who has been beautiful, has been rewarded for her beauty, and to go through something like alopecia where it's taking your hair out, and our hair is such a big part of our beauty, especially as Black women. And I also was surprised to see Black women take offense to her saying, as a Black woman, our hair is our currency. I feel like people just decided early on that they didn't like Jordan, and so anything she says, they find an issue with. But we know that Black women, especially, can be really critical of other Black women's hair. Season 1, people were talking about their wigs, they were talking about their hair. And now season 2, she's dealing with alopecia and she has to rely on wigs, knowing that the viewing audience is going to be very critical of that. That will put anybody in a weird mood. She's on national TV and she doesn't feel like she is looking her best. And so I think that resulted in a lot of the mood swings and her overall demeanor this season. It wasn't exactly fun to watch, but it was relatable because I can only imagine. I mean, think about in your life, some people, when they gain weight, they don't feel like they look as good. Losing their hair, maybe having skin issues. There's so many things as women that can make us feel like we don't look our best. And then to display it on a stage like a television show, that would bring anybody down. And so I did feel some empathy for Jordan there. Jordan's issue with Jasmine, though, that is another story. A lot of people were saying that they think that Jordan is jealous of Jasmine. And I do honestly think jealousy plays a small role, but I don't think that's their biggest issue. But there is some jealousy there, I think. And jealousy is just a normal emotion that every person is going to feel at some point or another. Some people feel it more often, some people don't. But if Jordan was a little bit jealous of Jasmine, that would be completely understandable for me, and it wouldn't seem out of the blue or weird or even make her a bad person, because again, it's something that naturally occurs in most people. I think their biggest issue, like they explained, is Jordan expected Jasmine to never change. And so Jasmine, like I mentioned, is going through these really distinct phases of adulthood, and it is causing her to change. She's evolving, and I think that Jordan knew her as a particular type of person, and to watch her become a different person is uncomfortable, and that causes rifts in friendships all the time. I know I've had friendships where we've naturally grown apart because we're just growing into two different people. And so that's what I think their biggest issue is in terms of the breakdown of their friendship. Alex should not get the F boy branding. I don't appreciate that Summer tried to make that happen for him, because if there's anybody in that house that is an F boy, it is Nick. And I'm so glad that at the reunion, Nick admitted to embarrassing his girlfriend, Tasia. We can see that Nick is a person who really cares about presentation. He likes things to fit where he thinks they need to go. And Tasia really fit his life. I think she fit his image of what he wanted in a life partner. She's beautiful, she's educated, but he did not respect that relationship. And I'm glad that they decided to call it quits. It's unfortunate when any relationship ends, but I think that she needs to find someone that respects the relationship. And I think Nick maybe needs to do a little more self exploration, because he also comes off as a little immature from time to time. Like when he was talking to Alex about rebeating Summer, I was just like, how old are we? Like, she's a baddie, so you should hit it again. That just made me look at Nick like, okay, maybe you're still a little bit immature when it comes to the romance department, but none of us are perfect. I do appreciate the type of Black man that Nick represents, though. A very well put together, extremely polished person. I love that representation of Black men on television. Preston can stay. I do hope that they stop boxing Preston in. I feel like they use him as like the gay male perspective, or this kind of wise, all knowing, all seeing person. And I think he has a lot more to offer than that. And I hope we will be able to see that in future seasons. Amir was also a really polarizing figure this season. And I saw so many people saying that Amir belongs on the original Summer House. And I think as Black people, we have to stop doing that. Amir is a biracial man who said he didn't really connect with his Black side because he grew up with his mom who was not Black. And so he was coming to Martha's Vineyard because he really wanted to understand and be more connected to Black culture. And even if someone doesn't fit your image of what a Black person should do, how they should act, who they should date, it doesn't make them less Black. He's a biracial person and he really wants to understand more about the other side of his culture. And I think we need to welcome that when people are genuinely trying to figure that out. Now, I do think that the network used Shanice and Amir to maybe bring in some people who could relate to them that aren't Black, but I don't think that we should automatically cast Amir out because he doesn't behave in the way that we think a Black man should behave. Now, his girlfriend Natalie, I think she can go because she just came in to stir up mess. But once again, I think they brought Natalie in because they were trying to attract an audience outside of the predominantly Black demographic that watches the show. Noelle was born to be on reality television. I want to call her Giselle 2.0 because physically she reminds me of Giselle, and I think they're both AKAs, but she was definitely well more liked by the audience than Giselle was. And so I'm not going to quite call her Giselle 2.0, but I think that she was Giselle's sister in another timeline. But she came in and she fit so seamlessly with the show. She brought comedic relief. She brought that lightheartedness that a lot of people were saying they were missing from the show. And her run on season 2 reminded me so much of Kenya and Portia's first season on The Real Housewives of Atlanta. They did not start in season 1, but when they did come in, they fit so seamlessly within the group that when we think of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, we think of Portia and Kenya as one of the top 4 or 5 housewives from that particular city. It also reminded me a lot of Candace from The Real Housewives of Potomac. Candace came in and she fit really seamlessly with the group as well. And when you think of these ladies, it's hard to believe that they're not OGs. And that's exactly what I got from Noelle. She came in and it felt like she had been there from day one. And so she absolutely stays for me. Taking it back to social media really quickly, because I brought up a colorism thing because there was a tweet that I saw and it really annoyed me. I'm not talking about the person who tweeted it. I'm not saying she is annoying. I don't know her personally, but it's takes like this that really bother me, and I'm going to read the tweet. The tweet says, I find the narrative around Bria is very similar to the early critique of the real Candace Dillard Bassett. I didn't stand for it then, and I won't now. Darker skinned women get to be emotional, angry, expressive, bougie, incredulous. I refuse to watch y'all deny their humanity. Bria's audience reception is nothing like what Candace is experiencing within the full cast of the show that she was on. And that's what I mean when I say we cannot throw the colorism flag on everything because, like, the racism flag is starting to lose its weight. Bria was just annoying and not fun to watch. And nobody is above critique just because of the color of their skin. I feel like takes like that are extremely misguided and they take the weight out of things that are really problems within our community and communities at large. I don't think what Bria is experiencing is colorism because Summer and Jordan also received negative critiques for the entire season. So it wasn't just Bria that people decided to hate. People hated some of the men on the show as well. People hated Jasmine. I don't know why this person decided to focus just on Bria when almost everybody on the cast was receiving negative critiques. So I think we have to stop with that just as a people. Like I said, there are real instances of colorism that happen. There are real instances of racism that happen. I don't think the pause of Summer House Martha's Vineyard was a result of racism, and I don't think the audience reception of Bria was a result of colorism. So those are my thoughts. I want to know what you think. Drop down in the comments and let's talk about it. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.